inspiring you to set the marketplace ablaze in partnership with an awesome and limitless God. This is the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast, and this isn't business as usual. Here's your host and Chief Fire Igniter, Shay Bynes.
Welcome back to the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. This is your host, Shay Bynes, and our goal here is to inspire you to operate your business completely yielded and in partnership with our awesome and limitless God. Today's conversation is with Matt Miller, owner of High Life Auto Car Dealership. There was a season of Matt's life when he didn't experience a sober day for over 4 years due to his addiction to drugs and to alcohol. And yet God completely and beautifully shifted his entire life through the process of him choosing to shift his business to align to the ways of the kingdom. It's really such a beautiful testimony of the power of yielding our businesses to the ultimate CEO, or as I like to say, our chief anything officer. Now, before we get started, I want to make sure that you know about Firestarter School. Firestarter School walks you through key foundations and practical applications that help you confidently partner with God at greater levels in your business. It's all about positioning you to experience His best and have a greater kingdom impact in the marketplace. It's an MP3 audio course available via mobile app, so I guess you can say it's like having me as a mentor in your pocket. And I truly believe that if you are a listener of this podcast and you enjoy what you're hearing and learning, you are going to want to grab Firestarter School. And guess what? Lifetime access to the course is available at the price of your choice. And yes, you heard that correctly. So head on over to our website at kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com/Firestarter School and get all the details. Now let's get started with today's conversation with Matt Miller. Listen in and enjoy. Matt Miller, what's going on, sir?
Not too much. How are we doing today?
I am doing great. It is a pleasure to have you on the podcast. I have never had a owner of a car dealership on the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. So this is actually a treat for me too, personally.
Hopefully I'm the first of many to come, I'm hoping. So hoping to take this industry by storm.
I love it. I love it. So good. And so you found Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur, you were sharing before I hit record. You found us through the YouVersion Bible app, and you listened to a few stories. You said business, Jesus.
There's not a lot out there like you guys. I mean, entrepreneurship is kind of a lone wolf. You kind of feel like you're on your own sometimes, and finding as much support and other people that are involved in starting from nothing, it's hard, and it's something that there's not a lot of reading on it. There's not a lot of stuff. So anytime you can find anything, you just dig in, dive in, and get as much of it as you possibly can.
Yeah. So let's start, Matt, by having you share, how did you even get started in this business of owning a car dealership?
It's kind of odd. I mean, I have no car background at all. I didn't change oil or brakes until I was a dealer for like 2 years, probably.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I knew nothing about the industry. I literally, the summer before we opened, I sold 2 cars on eBay. And I thought that, well, since I did that, I could obviously run a car business because I mean, naturally, that's all it takes to be an entrepreneur is just, sell 2 cars on eBay.
Wow.
And so we bought me and my wife, we got married. We were junior high sweethearts, and we got married. And a couple of years after we got married, we bought our first house. And there was some sort of government kickback thing for first-time homeowners. And we got $6,000 back. And that's how we started our business. And if you know anything about the car business, $6,000 buys what, like an engine nowadays? I mean, we got an office, we got our gravel lot down, meeting the bare bones, bare minimum. I'm 21 years old. My wife was 23, and we started with 2 cars. 2 cars on the lot is how it started. And we've just been going ever since. We started in 2009, and it's just been going.
Wow. So you're hitting the decade point now.
This is our 10-year birthday this year. So,
congratulations. I love it. It started with a gravel lot, a little tiny space, and 2 cars.
2 cars. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I love it.
We are up over about 70 cars now. Things are moving pretty good. We started out, just selling a handful of cars, and now we sell about 30 to 35 a month. things are just totally different from where we started. Like I said, I didn't really jump in. I didn't have the business degree. I went to college for about 6 weeks, realized college wasn't for me, dropped out and started right into work. I graduated 23 out of 28 in my class. So it was just a small little school, and I didn't do that great. It wasn't academic wise, I wasn't top notch, but it was just, I learned how to figure things out. And that's what a lot of being an entrepreneur is you work through the struggles, you work through the challenges. And I found out quickly that the car dealership would have plenty. So my wife just walked in, and she is here with me as well too, if you want to chat with her. So
okay, what's your wife's name?
Her name is Miriam, and she's been along with me the whole time during this journey, through the challenges and the ups and downs. And it's just kind of it's been nice to have her there along with me.
I love it. Well, hi, Miriam.
Hi.
So this is fun because you shared with me, which is how you ended up here at us having this conversation, is that you shared with our COO, Angie, how you basically you were baptized. And just 2 years ago, I don't know what your journey has been like with the Lord, but I just know that there was a lot of transformation that took place over the last couple of years. So talk to me about your story and just how things have kind of progressed with your relationship with the Lord, and then how that collided with the car business.
Okay, so the car business is one of those things. When we got started, we didn't really know what we were doing, how we were going to do it or anything. And we got started in the buy here, pay here business because the guy that was training me up, that's what he ran. And so that's really the only kind of business I knew. I got into it. It's one of those things where you work with a lot of lower income families. And so you kind of see the last stop for a lot of families. They've been denied everywhere else. They aren't maybe the best when it comes to money, skills, and different things, and they're struggling. And throughout the years, being a young man, I wanted to grow as quickly as I could. And I kind of grew a little too big, too fast. I let other people guide me. I let my employees kind of run however they wanted to run certain things. Things get blurry with dates on me, so give me a little grace there. But about 2011, 2012 or so, we opened up a second store. And things were just really, really booming for us. And things, we thought they were going in the right direction, but I started getting further and further away from church. I grew up in church as a young man and everything. So I knew the stories, but it never got to my heart. And I knew what you were supposed to say, and I knew how you were supposed to do it, but it was all just a show for me.
Yeah.
And I could tell I was getting farther away and farther away. I ended up getting into alcohol pretty bad. There in 2011, it was right after I turned 21, and I just started drinking occasionally and just kept getting worse and worse. And it would become to the point where I would drink with my employees after work, and then, it's 5 o'clock. Well, it's 4 o'clock. Well, it's 3 o'clock. And it just kept getting worse and worse to the point where, I couldn't go an hour without a drink. And it was just drinking all day, but I was a very high functioning alcoholic. So I thought it was okay. Right. I was still bringing home a paycheck. I was still providing for my family. I wasn't abusive. I wasn't mean or derogatory or anything like that. I was still able to have my wits about me. So I thought things were okay. This would continue. Got into some of the opiate epidemic, different things that happened there. And things were starting to spiral, and I didn't even see it happening. I didn't have that rock bottom where it was just I lost everything, because I was just, hey, things are going fine. I must be doing things right.
Right.
But sometime around that 2015, 2016 mark, I didn't see it, but things were happening at home with my relationships. I was present, but I wasn't there. I wasn't being the dad to my kids. I wasn't being the husband to my wife. I wasn't being the leader for my customers. I wasn't really, I was doing a study this morning, actually, and I was talking about, are you genuinely helping others? Are you putting them in a better place? And I was in business for myself. I was in business for me. I was in business to make money, to pad my pockets, to see how well I could do, how successful I could become. And it became all about me. And in 2016, my wife kind of put me in that situation of, you choose. It's either me or it's the booze, and you can choose. And I had to make that choice. And my last drink was August of 2016. So that's kind of a big thing for me. I struggled a lot with that. There was a lot of just your typical depression that you would have and different things like that when you quit doing something like that. And so that was a real difficult thing, that transition. But so in 2016, our sales had really started tanking. We shut down our other location that we opened up there in 2016. And we got down to where we were only selling maybe 5 to 9 cars a month. And we weren't paying our bills. We were maybe 2-3 months behind. We really had to put a list of our creditors together and say, which one of these is the highest priority? Which one of these is going to get paid this month? Because we didn't know. And I remember the real breaking point for me, the really eye-opening, humbling point was I went and interviewed for a job at a new car dealership. And this was about year 7 into entrepreneur. They said things got easier at year 5. And I'm like, come on, when is that going to start?
Yeah.
And it never did. And I remember interviewing, and the interview went well. I had all the right answers. I said all the right things. And at the end of it, he was like, I'm not going to hire you as long as you own another competing business or whatever. So and I'm like, I was applying for a janitor position. I'm not trying to compete. I'm just like, we need any kind of income.
Right.
And they said no. And so it really got to the point where it was like, God, what are we going to do? I didn't know how I was going to not only provide, but how am I going to feed my family? It got rough. So August, I quit drinking and I started going to Celebrate Recovery through our church. My wife she remained faithful this entire time. And it was one of those things where she went to church, and I remember going maybe that once a month, once every other month, special holidays type thing. And I knew what I was doing was wrong. I knew I wasn't in the right place. And so I was ashamed to go. I would just go and I would hide. I didn't want to be involved because I knew I wasn't in the right place. And when I stopped drinking, I decided I would start going to CR. I would just at least give it a shot. I know I needed help doing it. And so I started learning, and I started paying attention to the sermons, and I started just kind of putting the two together. Is there something to do with business and with Jesus? Do they actually mix? Because my whole upbringing with church and everything has been, you are a Christian on Sunday, and then you are yourself, your own person, Monday through Friday. You can do whatever it is you want.
Right.
And so I didn't realize they went together. And during that August to December time in 2016, there was just a lot of learning. And I remember meeting with my senior pastor after a sermon that he gave. It was about like giving or debt, or he was just talking about finances. And that was one of the big things on our mind with my wife and I, because financing is what we did as a business. And so when he was talking about finances, it just got our attention. And of course, we were still doing the buy here, pay here, and all the different kind of loans and everything like that. And we just went up and asked him, we explained our business model, and we said, hey, this is what we do. Are we okay? Are we in the right? And he just simply took my big, long, complex answer and said, nope, you're wrong. And it just kind of just popped my bubble pretty much, and just like, wait a minute, what if I do this? What if I tweak this? Or what if I do this or stop doing that? Can it be okay? Nope, not at all. And it was pretty much just like, so you're taking the last 7 years of work and you just want me to start over from nothing. And he's like, yeah, pretty much. And I'm like, man. And so we really put together like what is it that would honor God in our business? And we really kind of summed it up into 2 things. And I put this on my notes here. It says, 1, we were going to honor God in everything that we did. 2, we were going to put people in a better place. And at this time, I wasn't baptized. I wouldn't even have called myself a Christian or anything. I was experimenting with churches, I guess what you would say.
Yes. Even at this time of that conversation, are you talking about even at the time of the conversation with your pastor about your business model when he shook it up? Even at that time, is that where you were?
Yeah, I had quit drinking at that time. I was still using drugs a little bit, but it was starting to fade out. And it got to it just got to that point where I was tired of doing it on my own. It wasn't working. We had been doing business the way we had been doing business. And it just wasn't working at all. And so we had to do something different. Pretty much what it came down to for us, it really came down to no more financing. And that really, really hurt my wife, especially because the financing was our steady source of income. Every week, if we didn't sell a car, we at least had some payments coming in. We had some money, we had cash flow. So we knew how we were going to pay our bills. And as I was having this conversation with my pastor, it was really, would you want to buy a car like that? Would you, he started really saying, are you selling the way you want to buy cars? Are you putting people in the same position that you yourself want to be in? And he really asked that question of that genuineness. Are you being real with your customers? Are you treating them exactly the same way you want to be treated? And that meant for us that we couldn't finance anymore. We had to completely shut down this model, this way of doing business, because I tried with him. I was like, what if I don't charge any interest? Then can I do it? What if I don't do this or don't do that? And he's just like, he really came down to, would you want to do it? And I honestly couldn't answer, yes, I'd buy a car for myself. And so we took a couple months and we really started evaluating, what do we need to change? What are some practical things we got to start doing differently to where this business can honor God and put people in a better place? And I kind of wrote those things down. There was 4 things that we started with on our changing. And it was, we got to be honest about everything. And that means that if we lose a car sale and we have to send them down the street because we don't have what they want, we got to do it. That means if we might take a big loss on something because we're being honest about it, but we always got to be honest about what we do. The second thing was we got to do it by the book. The car business is terrible about taking shortcuts and making corners, and this rule can bend. Oh, we don't have to quite do this because there's so many rules and regulations. And we said, no, we're going to do everything by the book. It doesn't matter if it hurts, pinches, whatever, we're doing it. The next thing was fair markups. This is one thing that was really important to me because I want to put my customers in a better place. And if they're overpaying for a car, that's not helping them. And so I was really thinking about who is my customer? What is my customer needing? I was really trying to put myself in their shoes. And the last thing was no partiality. I wanted to treat everybody the same. And this was a big, big important thing. It spurred our no haggle pricing is what we ended up showing from this. But you can be a car wholesaler and buy 6 cars from me today, or you could be a single mom and walk in the door. You're going to get the exact same price. And I'm not going to, you're not going to get a special deal if you're a good negotiator, but you're going to get the same exact good deal if you're the worst negotiator. I was putting everybody on the same level. I was taking my expertise, my knowledge, my experience that I learned along the way in the car business, and I was applying it to my customers equally. I really, as I was reading the Bible and stuff, I saw that role in the church, like leadership and elders, and how they always talk about shepherds and their flock. And I started thinking about that in the business world. As entrepreneurs, we're like shepherds, and the customers are our flock. They're not always smart. Sheep are not always the smartest. And so we got to guide them. We got to protect them. We got to look after them. And so there was a lot of changing that we had to make. And I remember that change was not easy. It was because one of the things we switched was when we get rid of all the financing, we have no steady source of income anymore. We literally come to work each month, each day. And if we don't sell a car, we don't have a backup plan. Neither my wife nor I have other jobs. And so it either works or it doesn't. We were really putting all of our provision, all of our eggs in God's basket and saying, we're going to do it your way. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, we'll start over and do something else, but we're going to give it a shot. That December, we sold 52 cars that December. That first December, we decided to make the switch. It was 52 cars sold, and we knew there was going to be something different. And God really, ever since December of 2016, God really just poured it on with our dealership.
Okay, you got to take a step back for a second, Matt. So, all right. So you guys made this list. You're seeking God about what shifts we can make in this business that really align with your ways. And then you had this list. Did you execute on all those things at the same time? Like when you guys made that decision, did you say, okay, this is just the way we're doing things now. We're going to shift all of this stuff at the same time? It
was kind of a sink or swim moment for us. It was
rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, we knew what we were doing wasn't right. We knew what we were doing wasn't working. We were 2-3 months behind in our bills. We were living off the debt that we were getting at the time. Yes. And Yeah, it was just 100%. We had to do things differently.
I want to go back to something else you said too, because you said, just for context, so people understand, you said that after you made the shift, I think you said in December of that year that you guys sold 52 cars.
52 cars that month. And
okay, now how did that compare to before, so people know what the difference?
We sold 9 the month prior.
Wow.
Yeah. So, our average was about 15 a month. We sold 9 the month prior, and then we sold 52 that month. And it's been like that every single month since December of 2016. There's been some months where we get down, in the high 20s or 30s, but the average has been right around the 30 to 35 a month, which was something we thought was impossible, because prior to that, when we had just done our cash sales, we may have sold 5 or 10 a month. And so the fact that we just didn't think it was even possible to sell cars for cash. And it was one of those things where we fine-tuned it. One of the things we do is we sell cars $3,000 or less. So we only sell A to B starter cars for some people. We call them restarting cars for other people, but we get to meet a lot of people in very poor economic conditions. Our area right here in the Midwest is very, very broken. We live in a very poor state. Drugs are kind of all over. And so families are hurting in our area. And there's good families. There's nice neighborhoods. Don't get me wrong. But there's a lot of hurting people. I think the average income is less than $30,000 in our area. And so I think it was right around like 27,000. We're just in a very economically poor area. So the cars we sell A to B cars. We don't get people into debt. We avoid payments. We try to get people to save their money up. We try to teach them about finances whenever we can. But we really get to speak into people's lives is what we've found from this. Yes. People come in here and, I used to work at a church, before I got into the car business, I worked for churches, and I worked in the youth programs, and getting people to talk to you was difficult. No one wanted to talk to you about anything because you were part of a church, you were part of whatever. But I put an open sign up in my car dealership, and people will just pour their guts out to me and tell me their entire life stories and their hurts, their problems, their struggles. And God's just really opened some doors. Let me fast forward a little bit, because God continued to work on my heart. 2017 was a fun year. My youngest daughter, was born that year. She's, I think, right? 2016 she was born. I'm sorry. That's why I got my wife here.
She'll be 3 years old soon, or already is turned 3.
And so 2017 was just a fun year. But I remember, it was 2018, I think it was, when I went to men's conference. And it was that year I had been reading my Bible prior. We had been changing the business around, but my heart still wasn't there yet. And it was really hard for me because I grew up in church. I knew all the rules, and it was getting it from my head to my heart was just the hardest trip I have ever made, was trying to get my faith from there to there.
Yes.
And that summer we went to a men's conference, and it was finally a surrender of, all right, God, I've seen what you did in my business. Now I want you to do that in my heart, in my life.
Wow.
And I went to men's conference. I went and talked to my campus pastor after men's conference, and I got baptized that first Sunday in July. And I remembered going to church every Sunday, and this is horrible. Don't
no judgment zone, Matt.
I remember going to church with a flask in my pocket because I couldn't make it through a service without drinking.
Yeah.
But I remember the reason I kept going was because I would see people get baptized. And then when I would see them come up out of the water, I would see a sense of hope on their face.
Wow, that's powerful.
There was something just in that water that was changing them, and I was like, if they can change, I know there's hope for me too. And I kept thinking that, and I got to experience that in my business. And God, He rescued our business from pretty much how we were trying to destroy it. He rescued it. And I wanted that in my life too. And when I got baptized, it was just that complete surrender of, all right, God, you have my business, you have my skills, you have me, now you have my heart. And ever since, I've been running to Him. I get up early on the physical side from working out, just that warrior type mentality, to connecting it to the Bible. God's called us to be warriors as entrepreneurs. We stand in a battlefield every day, and there's a fight to be had. And the car business is no different than any other business. You can take advantage of people anywhere. You can hurt people, or you can help people. You can build them up, or you can tear them down. And God's just been showing me how to build people up in the marketplace. Our big key, you can call it a mission statement or call it whatever, is to put people in a better place. If that's not buying a car from us and it's just telling them about Jesus, then we want to do that. If that's selling them this car over that car, or telling them where to go, or just that they need to save their money up. We just want to put people in a better place. We just had this happen with another gentleman that we're working with in our church. He came to me. He wasn't a customer. He wasn't in that kind of economic class, but we were able to help him out getting his business started. We were able to teach him how to run a car business, how to work well within God's word and everything. And so we're finding new opportunities. We're always praying for God to open new doors, to close doors, just to guide us, because we saw what it looked like when we did it on our own. And It wasn't pretty. And so we're just kind of at the point now where it is, God, you're in control. You are the true CEO of this business, and we'll just do whatever you wanted us to do. But one thing, the reason I brought up my youngest daughter is it's a sense of pride in my heart, because she has never seen her dad drink. She's never seen her dad use any drugs of any sort. So it's just a really encouraging thing for me there. So
that is so amazing. And I was like sitting here, like trying not to cry. I don't cry on the podcast usually. I was trying not to cry, but it was just like, it's so beautiful to me that how you went through a process of actually, you in a way surrendered your business before you even fully surrendered your heart. You surrendered your business, and then God showed his faithfulness, and then created something in your heart where you're like, what you just did there, God, like, I want you to do that on the inside of me. And that is so amazing to me. A lot of times things happen in different orders, right? Like things happen in all kinds of orders in people's lives. But the fact that you made a decision, even when you were in a place at church where you're like, I'm here, but I'm just kind of here. I'm not really fully connected. I'm just kind of here. But at the same time, you were still at a point where you're like, okay, I'm going to heed the wisdom of this, of my pastor. Even though I'm not really fully all in on all this stuff, I'm in this crazy place. And so let me just give it a shot, Yeah.
It's not hard to tell when your life's a wreck, there's obvious signs, it was just, God let me fail. And it's one of those things where experience is a great teacher. And God let me see the mess I could get myself into. And it was by his grace that he let us get out of it, and it was, it's been a very encouraging ride. And I hope it's not done yet. I hope God's got more.
Sounds like it's just beginning.
But it was the faithfulness of my wife. When I wasn't being the spiritual leader, when I wasn't being the man I needed to be, she took our kids and went to church. She kept inviting me to church. She had people praying for me that I didn't know, probably didn't even like at the time or anything else,
Yeah.
And I remember, she suffered through. She really did. And I knew what I was doing wasn't right. I think we all kind of know that, but it's just that pride or that arrogance that says, my way,
Yeah.
But God really did. He brought me to that sense of broken, but not destroyed.
Yes.
I have a tattoo on my arm at 2 Corinthians 4:9. It says, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. And that's where we were. It was just, we were very humble. And I'm not going to lie to you. Like I said, it's very nervous some months because we ultimately rely on the provision of God every single month. We are generous givers. I read the Bible, and it is a to-do list for me. If it says do it, we do it. If it says do this, we do it. And we're reading through the book of Proverbs right now and the book of Acts, and it's just, there's a lot of wisdom to be had. And I think we're both smart enough to know that we don't have all the answers.
Yes.
And there's been other people that have been around much longer than we have. And so taking wisdom is something that we've learned to do.
Yeah, no, that's so good.
One area that God's really been showing up is my family. I have 3 kids. I have an oldest son, and middle daughter is 7, and then my 3-year-old daughter. And God's been showing me the importance of teaching them, training them, and building them up through this. I was talking to my kids this morning, and I was reminding them about, do you remember when Daddy used to drink? And they just looked at me and they're like, no, Daddy, we can't even remember that. And it was just an encouragement in my life of, so different.
Yes.
And I always strive for, and I always shoot for the why question, because that's probably the number one thing I get all the time in my business is, why are you doing this? Why are your prices so low? What's the catch? We don't get why. And whenever I can get to that why moment, I know I've done something right. And that is when I get to tell people about Jesus, because Jesus is that ultimate why. Yes. And that's like my open door to my customers is when they say, what's the catch? I can say it is because of Jesus.
Wow.
And that is probably the most encouraging thing to me. God didn't call me to be a preacher, didn't call me to be in the church walls. He called me to be the hands, the feet. I always get encouraged when I read like Acts and I see Paul building tents. He was the worker. He had his hands dirty. He got his, he was bleeding. He had scrapes. He had bruises. And then he got up and he preached the word. He wasn't ashamed. He was the Christian Monday through Sunday, just every day in and out. And you really saw the Holy Spirit move through him. Yeah. And I don't see why that can't be any different than today. If we're truly trying to honor God in our business and our walk and how we sell things, and then that's important. If you're starting a business, you really got to ask yourself, is this putting people in a better place? Am I really adding value to my customers? I find it great whenever I can sell a car to a customer and then they can turn around and sell it and make money too, because it just really, it's just the confirmation for me that I know that I put my customer in a better place. I helped that family out. And instead of me trying to get all the money myself, sell as many cars myself, sell for the highest price myself, and gather all the money myself, I'm trying to now empower those around me and build others up around me to do the same. And it's just been very encouraging to start seeing like my kids grow and to see the change, start to see other people around me. Because they start by asking the question why. But then when you see them starting to accept it and starting to do the change in their lives, then it's really rewarding. Here about 2 weeks ago, I got to baptize somebody, and it was just a very rewarding experience for me, just because here I was drunk 3 or 4 years ago and watching people, to being in the waters myself, to now getting back in the waters again, sharing the love of Jesus. And it's just, I've had many of those Elijah type moments where just it felt like fire coming down from heaven, and God just really shows up. And every time you see it, it's very, very inspiring,
So good. I love that.
I was reading, and I opened my Bible this morning before I started kind of taking notes, and it was Psalms 105:1. It says, give thanks to the Lord, call on his name, make known among the nations what he has done. And I just find that to be a life vision for me. I need to tell everybody what Jesus has done. And then hopefully I can give them the practical tools and steps that I can to get them to that next level. But I just want to tell everyone and anyone I can about Jesus. If he could change me, a drug addict, a drunk, it wasn't pretty. For 4 or 5 years, I don't think I had a sober day. Wow. And it was tough. It was tough on my kids. It was tough on my wife. I was hurting my community. I was hurting my customers. I was hurting my lenders. I was hurting everybody. And the fact that they can tell the difference now is just proof. I always try to find the physicalness of God, that physical proof that God exists. And that's the change in our lives, is that proof. It doesn't take much to see change and see if it's real or if it's just a fake change. And I'm happy to say this one's real.
Wow, that is so amazing. I am so grateful for you sharing your story. I think it's going to be encouragement to a lot of people. So good. Where did you say you're located again? You said you're in the Midwest, but where are you?
Fort Madison, Iowa. It's right where Illinois, Iowa, and Missouri all meet right on the river.
Very good. Very good. I love it. And what's the name of your car dealership?
It's called High Life Auto.
High Life Auto?
Yep. My last name's Miller. And so in high school, I got the nickname High Life. So it just kind of stuck with me.
Too fun. Now, Matt, if anyone wants to connect with you, they might really resonate with something that you shared or just might want to get your thoughts on something. How can people connect with you?
Well, you go to our website's highlifeauto.com. It has all my contact information, cell phone, email, that kind of stuff. I'm an open book, and that's one of those things where I'm not ashamed of my past. I'm not ashamed to tell my story or where I've been because it shows how great Jesus is. And so I love to talk with entrepreneurs. I love to have conversations with people that are wanting to get into business. I love making money. I mean, making money for me is fun, but gaining value is important. I want to make sure, the customer wins, the business wins, the community wins. And that's just a total culture shift from where I was before, because it was all about me. How do I make the most money? How do I become the next Bill Gates, or how do I become the next whatever? And now it's all about how can I make Jesus' name greater? And the weird part of that, and like I was trying to explain, is we've become smaller. He's become bigger, but he's made us bigger in the process.
Yes.
He's taken care of us financially. He's provided the sales, the things that we didn't think would ever be possible are happening day after day. There's times where we still get the notice from the bank when they call and say, hey, you're out of money. And it's like, God, what do we do now? And then things just come up. I'll get a call and say, hey, this job opened or that job opened, and that's probably the most encouraging thing is we get to see God. And being entrepreneurs, we get to see God so much more that way.
Yes, you are truly seeing God's provision on a regular basis and learning how to walk in the fullness of that provision.
Absolutely. Yep.
So good, Matt.
Cool. Yep. I love entrepreneurship. It's been a real passion of mine. So anything I can do to help.
All right. That's awesome. Bless you.
Thanks for joining us on the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, we encourage you to subscribe and spread the word. And don't forget, you can gain access to even more resources, plus a thriving community of fire starters by visiting our website at kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com.